Hi everyone, and welcome to Heal Endometriosis Naturally with WendyKLaidlaw. Wendy has spent the last 2 years helping women with various stages of endometriosis to heal naturally after putting her condition into remission. After her own healing success from stage 4 endometriosis and adenomyosis, she's inspired to heal others, and her goal is to help some of the 175 million women know that there is another way other than painkillers, drugs, or surgery. This is the place to be for real talk with real people for real results, so you can learn how to heal your endometriosis naturally. Please note that the opinions expressed in this program may represent options, but are not a substitute for proper medical care. Before starting any new healthcare program, we recommend you consult with a health professional.
Hey everyone, it's WendyKLaidlaw here from Heal Endometriosis Naturally, and as always, I hope that this podcast finds you well. Well, this week's podcast is titled, Is Your Environment Healthy or a Hindrance to Your Healing? It's really just about the impact our environment has on all of us as humans. And before I discuss and go into more details about how environments affect our emotions, our thoughts, our feelings, our brain and our bodies, I want to tell you the tale of two plants. You may or may not know, but I'm an avid plant lover. If you were ever invited to visit my apartment, you may feel as if you've been walking into a botanical gardens. I have plants everywhere. In addition to the healing benefits of plants producing oxygen and removing some carbon dioxide in our environment, they also look really good. They soften a room and just bring it to life. I like to have some connection to nature when I'm working from home every day, and that kind of makes me feel like I'm almost outside, especially in Scotland where the weather is pretty lousy most of the time. But it fills me with joy to watch them grow and sprout new leaves. For women who are invited into the Endometriosis Academy, in the advanced section, I actually ask them to go out and purchase a peace lily plant. Because for me, it's a plant called the peace lily that takes centre stage in every one of my rooms. They just adore the abundance of light, in particular my apartment, and grow at the rate of knots. It's really hard to kill them. In fact, they grow so vigorously and fervently and in abundance that last year I was forced to cut several of them in half and repot them. As painful as it was to literally saw them in half, it was not long before they were merrily growing again and sprouting their impressive and elegant white flowers. But I digress, if only to explain my love of houseplants. If you're not into caring for plants, then I understand that there may be a part of you right now that doesn't really want to continue listening, but please do bear with me. I will get to my point soon. So I purchased 2 new plants a few months ago. I don't actually know the name of them, but they look very attractive and were different from my normal peace lilies. And after checking them through thoroughly that they hadn't brought with them any unwanted guests, i.e. like black flies and mealybugs, they were duly placed into 2 separate areas in my apartment. I admit that there was little thought given to the placement except about the aesthetic look and where the area needed some greenery to warm it up. I'm very diligent in watering my plants every week. I thoroughly enjoy it, checking the water, making sure that it runs through, that the roots are not sitting in water and not rotting in the pot, and also making sure that the roots themselves have not outgrown the pot yet again. However, I had the opportunity to go away for a few weeks, and I left my plants in the wonderful, caring hands of my son, who was given strict instructions on how to take care of them. Upon my return, I was delighted to see that the majority of my plants were still alive and thriving. Some of my plants have been around for over 10 years and have their own personalities. I know that some only like a little bit of water at a time, and others like a lot of water. Some are very fragile, others are very hardy and resilient. Think of the peace lily, hence why I love the peace lily so much, and why I have so many of them. Some prefer cooler places, but lots of light. Others need a decent amount of shade. I've had to learn this through a great deal of trial and error with plants over the years. But I do love the peace lily, as they're easy to read and very forgiving if I have on occasion forgotten to take the appropriate care of them. The sorry sight of their droopy leaves are an immediate reminder to act quickly and lovingly with water to prevent the sharp decline towards the waste paper basket. Anyway, the following day, I took longer to inspect my plants after I'd returned. It was then that I noticed something significant with the 2 particular plants I had bought before I'd gone away. When I left, they were identical. One had been placed in my kitchen window and the other was being placed in my hall. When I returned, one was thriving and the other one was close to death and dying. It got me thinking how the environment we're born in, grow up in, and live in have such a big impact on our lives. These plants were only 12 feet apart, but that had a huge difference on their growth and would be their future. Sadly, the one that was in the hall is no longer. Its poor, futile form filled the insides of the waste paper basket soon after I'd noticed it. This really does go to show the impact of environment. It's the same for everything in life, including endometriosis. When you look at what endometriosis is in its very basic form, it is a disease exacerbated by hormonal imbalance and inflammation. In a healthy environment with a healthy body, you have the benefit of an amazing immune system that is able to mop up and eradicate any displaced tissue, unwanted bacteria, and disease-causing pathogens. This is why increasing your awareness of the environment that you live in is a key factor in your healing journey. For those who have been listening to my podcast for some time, you will know that I struggled in the past to comprehend the various elements affecting the health of my body. I was very naive, I was very impatient, and very dismissive about such factors being able to affect my body. 10 years ago, I was pretty ignorant about my body, full stop. Still, I remember having some curiosity about what was happening inside my body. So on my 6th surgery, I asked the surgeon to take a video of the surgery and the operation and show me the recording of my insides. I was not prepared for what I saw, and what I saw required a lot of grimacing and bracing. I witnessed a searing hot tongs cut through adhesions, a mass of them, and passed dangerously close to my intestines. My uterus was so matted down by a thick and intricate structure and layer of adhesions, much like a spider's web, that it was barely visible and caused me to initially mistake it for an ovary. The video revealed what my insides looked like and how inflamed and pained they were, and it forced me to stop and pay attention, finally. Well, to some extent. I very much continued on in my original ways. My conscious mind wasn't paying enough attention, and so therefore my body went on strike, literally. My unremitting mind and my dominator parts, the pusher, the perfectionist, the people pleaser, were exercising their strengths to try and to defy what was happening physically. Mentally, I told myself I should just be able to get up and get back to work. In other words, I should put up and shut up. It was just a matter of being strong enough and pushing through is what I used to tell myself. That old and faulty conditioning came down to my early childhood environment, which in turn has been shaped by many generations of my ancestors down the line since time immemorial. But that environment, which was predominantly toxic masculine energy and relentless in its pursuit of excellence and perfectionism, did me no good. It is interesting to read the book In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts by psychologist Gabor Mate, who talks about how the environment we are born into and grow up in literally shapes our cells. A child's early home environment should foster a feeling of safety and security. It should be nurturing and loving. But when it's not, there are long-term effects on a child's brain development and physical health. When I started reading about the subconscious conditioning and its profound effects, it gave me some comfort. As a former professional businesswoman who had her own successful property business for over 20 years, it was hard when my body became sick and ill with endometriosis. In the toxic masculine world, the idea of even appearing to succumb to a period pain as a woman, I feared, made me feel weak. And weakness in a man's world is viewed as a fate worse than death. I would say to myself, I just needed to be stronger. I just needed to be tougher. Or I just had to grin and bear it. Or just had to take enough painkillers to get through that hour, that morning, that day. I'd come to accept that my regular pelvic pain was, inverted commas, normal. That pain was just the normal process of being a woman. That somehow that was just who I was, and on the really bad days all those years ago, I would wonder if I'd done something so utterly terrible in a former life that I was paying for it now. It never occurred to me in a million years at the time that my environment was the cause of all my pain and suffering and faulty immune system. Particularly 5 elements within the environment, which are what I call now the 5 Ps, are the framework of poisons: produce, products, property, people, and past. We all have these incredible protective, emotional, and psychological mechanisms designed to protect ourselves from pain. Our brain has adapted over millions and millions of years. The oldest part of our brain, often called the reptilian part, the oldest part of the brain, is purely focused on basic survival and background operation functions of the body. Think about the heart pumping on its own and the intestines all working by themselves, amongst many other elements. But if you grew up in a household that was under great chronic long-term stress, strain, and suffering, then even as a newly born baby or a young infant, your highly acute sensory systems would have been activated at the mere sense of it. Our bodies are amazing, which I've said many, many times before, and I fully appreciate it for all its glory and protective systems. So if this newborn baby or infant, before the age of 5 years old, had been upset or unsettled or had upheaval, then its body would have had to adapt to the environment. For example, if a baby's mother was crying or distressed or anxious or upset regularly for over a long period of time, and the baby wasn't given the holding, the comforting, and the attention it needed, then the neural pathways that start to be formed are ones of, it's not safe, I'm not safe, life is not safe, which in turn impacts hormonal output and the internal stress response. If a body is affected so much by the environment that it lives in a chemical soup of stress hormones, think adrenaline and cortisol, then before long those feelings that should be felt for a short period of time and then rebalance back into a relaxed parasympathetic system don't happen. The body and the brain have to adapt for survival. My own household growing up was marred with great upset and distress. From my youngest memories, I recall waking up thinking, well, if Mum was in a bad mood yesterday, then I hope she's in a good mood today. That innocent child's view of wishful thinking with no concept of other matters or what else was going on in the home, only that I was always stressed and tense and trying to keep my parents happy. So for a small infant to experience its home environment as continually stressful, with tension, the body then never fully is able to relax and allow the feel-good hormones, think of the abbreviation called DOS, D-O-S-E, which is for dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin and endorphins, they never get to enter the body in a way to allow it to relax. Even as the child gets older and may fleetingly experience these rare sensations of niceness and enjoyable hormones in their body, the mere experience of a new sensation may actually cause fright and fear and confusion, resulting in repelling and dismissing any nice events, people or things, because they're so alien. If your environment has taught you to be on guard and alert in a home life that should have been safe and loving, then it makes sense that this is the background operating system that is set up deep down in your subconscious and in your nervous system, much like the background software in an Apple computer or an Apple Mac. You can't see this operating system, and you may strongly try to affect change in your approach to your life and your body and the people around you, but you find yourself keep defaulting back to old patterns. And this is why increasing awareness is key, because it's not your fault. What you're trying to do is affect change consciously when these old patterns are deeply embedded into your subconscious. By journaling every morning to get to the point that slowly and surely you recognize patterns, this will help to affect change and affect your body. Patterns of behavior. Notice patterns of emotion. Notice patterns of relationships. Awareness increases the level of consciousness about whether the work that you're in, the family that you came from, the partner that you're with, and the friends that are around you are indeed a tonic to your body or a toxin. Some early indications that your environment, people, places and things are toxic to you emotionally is if you feel overwhelmed regularly. If you've grown up in a stressful household and your mother or your main caregiver was unavailable to you for whatever reason, illness, abandonment, divorce, loss, whatever, in your times of reassurance and need, then it teaches you to become self-sufficient, which of course is no bad thing. But when you then feel separate and alone and lost, that again impacts your body. If the spiritual teachers profess that we are all connected via atoms and subatomic particles, think energy and matter, it is no wonder that so many people feel extra lost and alone when they've grown up in a hostile home and never felt safe enough to connect with the very people who were supposed to provide protection and safety for them. Some of these teachings, sadly, steeped in religion, are very outdated when you compare how much trauma, mistreatment and upset is known now to occur in many homes. I do have to say that some studies state that if a child has grown up in a secure, safe and stable and nurturing environment with, in inverted commas, a good enough mother, then even upsetting events and traumas and dramas later on in years are not as devastating to the immune system and the nervous system as a feeling of abandonment in early infanthood. You see, the neural pathways set up in early years provide a cognitive structure and baseline support to enable a human to deal with the external events, make sense of them, and to process them in a healthy manner, enabling the body systems to recalibrate and rebalance. But if a child has never experienced safety, never experienced the love or security that she needed, then the physical body then adapts and is built for defense and protection from perceived attack and uncertainty. This is where a professional woman may appear very successful on the outside, on the surface, having learnt incredible coping strategies to compartmentalize any fear or anxiety in her mind or in her body, yet suffer emotional overload or overwhelm more often as the old coping strategies that used to work sufficiently for decades start to fail. You see, it takes a lot of energy to compartmentalize disapproved feelings and emotions like fear and anxiety, especially when you're working in a high-pressure corporate environment which may be male-dominated workforce who have never encountered the pain of a period, let alone endometriosis. You may feel the pressure to be better than your male colleagues because deep down you feel inferior due to the pain that racks your body recklessly and regularly without warning. This tension, fear and anxiety in the mind can lead to cognitive overload where your brain literally shuts down like a computer and limits your ability to process and deal with what the external stimuli and environment and all that's coming in. If the body has been trained from birth to compartmentalize any emotions and sensations or forms of distress and switch off from it, then like the cogs of a machine, they start to wear and tear with perpetual use. So the key to providing the right healing environment for your body is to start looking at your home environment. Have another look at your work environment. Pay attention to your friendship environment and, of course, your intimate environment with your closest partners, husbands, and relationships. Over and above the food you put into your body and the products you put on your skin, and recognizing how tonic or toxic your environments are will also have an impact on whether you thrive and flourish like the plant that still resides now in the kitchen, or your cells will perish like in the plant that was in the hall. I hope that you are smarter than me. I hope that you are sharper than me and more open than me. For I lost decades because I resisted the concepts of conditioning and environment and their subconscious effects on our brain, our body, our mind and spirit. Today, almost, I don't know how many years down the line, I still continue to be pain-free, symptom-free of endometriosis, adenomyosis, thyroid issues, mitochondrial dysfunction, and chronic fatigue syndrome. Because I paid attention to my environment and I recognized who was a tonic, what was a tonic, and who was toxic, and gave myself the choice to remove what was toxic. You'll learn in future episodes how to start, only obviously starting with journaling, but also to progress forward into how to put in appropriate boundaries when you do have recognition of what is toxic in your environment. So don't underestimate the environmental factors that are going on. And whilst we've got all these big talks in the news right now about climate change and the global health of the world and its climate, also look at the smaller world within yourself and how it's affecting you, because it may be inhibiting the natural healing process that's waiting to happen inside your body so that you become a boss of your endometriosis and endoboss. To your health.
Thanks for listening to Heal Endometriosis Naturally with WendyKLaidlaw, and I hope you enjoyed the show. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and rate us. If you're interested in learning more, you can download your top 5 jumpstart tips at healendometriosisnaturally.com and jump on the VIP email list. Remember to keep you number one, for the world needs a healthy you.